Yeah, so we're here with Chimera in the studio in Friends at Alberg. As you can see, there's quite a lot of analog kit kicking around amidst a few controllers. But we're going into that later. So, where should we start? How long have you been in Berlin?
I've been here 4 years now.
Cool. And what were you doing before then?
I was doing the same thing, but in Barcelona for 3 years.
Cool.
And then I was before that I was in Costa Rica for a year. And then I was just working in some just customer service rubbish.
Okay.
And before that I was in Ireland. So I left Ireland in 2006.
Nice. And then you made the move here to work full-time on your music?
Well, I had started doing that in Barcelona. So from 2007 till now, I've been doing this full-time.
So what are your favourite bits of kit?
Well, kind of changes from time to time, but I guess there's ones that I use more often than not. At the moment, my favorite bits are the Nord Rack 2, which I get like most of my polyphonic sounds from. This Vermona Monolancet is really nice. I get like bass lines and pads and leads. It's really versatile actually, this one. And the Minotaur, which I get probably 99% of my bass lines from.
Great, yeah, I'm actually going to get hold of one of those soon. Really looking forward to it.
That was great. It's really good.
Yeah, nice.
I really like it's smooth, and you can make it nasty as well, but I usually use it for its like smooth sound and this real full bass.
So do you mostly use hardware synths, or are you using soft synths and instruments on your computer as well?
A lot of the main sounds in the track will come from hardware, and then I will fill it in the kind of background sounds or some kind of like the secondary sounds would come from VSTs, but I tend to use a very limited, very small amount of VSTs. So I use the TAL Togu audio line. They've got a bunch of free VSTs which are really good, and they've got two ones which cost next to nothing. I think they're like €30 or something. They've got an emulation of the Juno.
Nice.
I think it's an emulation of Juno 60. I'm not sure, but and they've got an emulation of the SH-101 as well, and they're both really good. I use the Juno one all the time.
Great.
In fact, probably more than the hardware. Even though, but this is great though. Yeah.
And your DAW is live?
Yes.
How long have you been on live?
Since version 4, so 2005, 2006.
Yeah, same as me.
Yeah.
Before then, were you?
I was using a program called Buzz, which is a tracker program.
Okay.
I was just entering hexadecimal into a display and getting music out the other end.
Cool. So, just going back to those times, where did you start? How did you get into music?
Well, as a teenager, I was into guitar music, all kinds of like metal and alternative, and then kind of got into acoustic stuff and folk and anything with a guitar in it, basically. And I really didn't like electronic music at all.
Me neither. It's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think so many of the producers I meet are exactly the same.
Yeah.
And myself, I teach music production now, electronic. I'm obsessed with it. But same, I was into indie and predominantly guitar-based stuff.
Exactly.
As well. Wow. Okay.
I think the only band that kind of bridged the gap for me was Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, but they were like the only band that I listened to that had, that used like keyboards or synthesized sounds.
Yeah.
But doing it in a very like rock metal kind of way.
So they were, I guess, an early inspiration. What else did you? Yeah. Who else was an inspiration to you?
Metallica. Yeah. Metallica were my favorite band for years. Cool. Absolutely. Metallica, Nine Inch Nails. I mean, Trent Reznor is actually one who's still to this day is an influence for me. I look up to all the stuff, even though I don't like everything that he does these days, but he still puts out some good things here and there. Yeah. I used to be really, for a while back in the mid 90s, I was very into the Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah. God, who else? Yeah, lots of different ones, but yeah, I think Metallica was definitely the big one for sure.
Nice. And the electronic artists and producers later on, who was it that I guess
so I only
guys that bridged the gap for you?
Yeah, I only kind of got into it in year 2000 when I went to college, and a friend of mine was a DJ, and he kind of showed me the basics of DJing. I didn't even like the music, but I was just kind of fascinated by the concept of getting two pieces of pre-recorded music and adjusting them so that they get in time. But it was something so completely different to playing an instrument, but also very involving in a similar way. So that I kind of just mixed with his records at his house, and as I was mixing, over the next weeks and months, I kind of actually started to appreciate and like the music that I was mixing. And then I got into it. I guess I started, when I started out for the first year, I was kind of buying lots of different things like house. It was the year 2000, so like the kind of French house sound was really big then. And then another friend of mine played like trance and progressive, so I was listening to and buying like a couple of those as well. And then a bit of techno, but it wasn't until a year later when I saw Dave Clark playing in the Red Box in Dublin, and he was playing a full-on techno set, and then I knew what I liked the most. It was techno. Cool. And I was into techno then from then on, and also into a year or two later, actually Dave Clark came out with World Service, which is like a 2-disc mixed CD compilation. One disc was techno and the other disc was electro, and I really got into electro then. And actually some of my very first productions when I started producing in 2002 were electro. Cool. Yeah.
What happened after then? Who were you? Who did you first sort of get signed by, or what were your first projects?
Well, I started making music just in Ireland, just on a very low, very small scale thing. I was making all kinds of different things, and I started giving them to some Irish labels, and I had some little compilation appearances just on Irish CDs, this kind of thing, which for me, like back then, was like huge. Ooh, I got a release, My first actual like record came out on an Irish label called Invisible Agent as an electro record, 2 tracks, and that came out in 2005.
How did that happen? What was?
Well, Dublin's a really small scene, so I knew the guys who ran the label, and we just, I don't know, I think they just asked me for music, or they saw me playing live and they asked me for music. That was it. It was very, very easy.
So you were playing live? You started playing live?
I started playing live already a year after I started making music. So there used to be this festival in Ireland called the DEF Festival, the Dublin Electronic Arts Festival, run by Eamon Doyle from D1 Recordings, which is like one of the longest running labels in Ireland. And there was another, I can't remember who it was, but someone asked me to play at an event that was taking place at the same time as part of the festival. And I said, well, I can do a DJ set for it. I said, no, we'd like to do a live set. I was like, I don't play live. I've only just started making tunes, a year ago. And they're like, no, I think you can do it. Come on, you got a month to go. I think you can do it. So I was like, okay. So I did it. And since then, I've been playing live. And I think I started out, my live set was kind of a mix of playing some kind of like, finished waves of some of my tracks with like loops in between and effects and all this kind of stuff. And then over the next 6 months, I managed to make it completely, so there was no complete track in there. It was only loops. So I broke down every single track of mine into just 1 to 4 bar loops of every single component, and then I made my live set like that. And that's pretty much how I work now, except now I use MIDI as well in the live set. So.
So what happened? What was the next step after that? You started. How did you go from a few releases on some, through some people you knew in Ireland to, the next step, where you are now?
Also, kind of by chance. So I was DJing in Dublin. I was playing a warm-up set for Funk the Void from Scotland, and I gave him a CD of some of my tracks which I'd made. And I got an email back from him, I don't know, a month or 2 later, and he said, "Oh man, I really like these tracks. I've been playing out, 2 or 3 of these in all my sets. Do you know, are they getting released anywhere?" And I was like, "Well, no. I mean, they're just demo tracks. I don't even know who to send them to." So he said he would pass them on to a few label people that he knew that might like them. And I thought, okay, cool. Let's see what happens. And I didn't get nothing happened until like a year later, actually, when I got this email out of the blue, complete random email from these guys in Austria, Philip and Nicholas, who ran a label called Supreme Entertainment. And they had been passed 1 or 2 of my tracks from Lars, Funk the Void, and they really liked them and they wanted to put them out. So I was like absolutely stoked. And we did it, and that was my first international release. And from that, kind of things snowballed in a way, because they sent that release out on promo to various people. One of the people that really liked the release was Josh Wink from Ovum. And he actually got in contact with me and he said, "Oh, I really like," actually he had a request, because he liked one of the tracks on the release a lot, but he didn't like one part of it. So he asked me if I could make an edit of it for him. And I did. And then he was like, "Yeah, this is really cool. Oh, and by the way, if you've got any other tracks that you'd like to send my way, go for it." So I did. And I sent him a track which I just finished that week called Umbrella. And that became my first release on Ovum. And once it came out on Ovum, then I had like various labels contacting me.
Snowballed.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of went on and on. And, along the way, that's kind of how it's been. Now, there's 3 ways that I get my music out now. One is when the label contacts me directly, and if it's a label that I like and that I think it would be good to work with, I will do it. 2 is somehow, so I get to play gigs now and I get to meet various people, and sometimes they're label managers or sometimes they're friends of label managers. And if I'm playing live or DJing and they hear my tracks and they ask me if they're signed, and I say no, and then that's how a release comes about as well. And 3rd as well, I still do what pretty much everyone else out there does, and I still send demos to labels that I really like as well. And I hope that they'll pick them up. It happens.
Nice. You've just been telling me about 2 pretty exciting projects by the sounds of things. Both remixes, was it?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about those?
Well, I can tell you about one of them, because one of them has been confirmed so far.
The other one's between the 2 of us.
Yeah. So I just finished a remix for Moby, actually. I got contacted by his manager about 2 months ago, and he just had a new album that came out at the end of last year, and I think they're releasing some singles from the album, and they asked me if I wanted to remix one of the tracks, so that was a huge honor. And it was an absolute nightmare to do, actually, because I knew I had like really good source material for the remix, but it took such a long time to come together. And my way of working is very the way that I work is that I will start something, and if it doesn't work after an hour or 2, I know that it's not going to work. So I just trash it and I start something new.
That's a very good tip. I can't tell people that often enough. Just
Yeah.
don't keep working at something for hours or days, and
Yeah.
because it's probably not working if it's not where you want it to be.
I mean, something like if you know, I mean, if it starts off, there are tracks like that where, okay, I know this sounds good, this bit, but it's not quite there. And those then do require like, you know, more work to finish them off, obviously. But if you don't have, or if I don't have some kind of like hook or some kind of something that kind of reels me in after working on it for the first few hours, then I know it's not going to work, and I just need to change. I need to change my angle of attack, you know? Mm-hmm. So with the remix, and with remixes in general, the problem is that you can't completely trash everything because you have to start from the same place each time. You're starting from the same source material. What made this one a little easier was that there were vocals in it. So, as is kind of normal or customary when you do a vocal remix, it's acceptable to make your own music around the vocals, and that's what worked for me. So after 3 or 4 weeks of like at various failed attempts every single day, finally on like the last day, and which is also the name of the track, I managed to get something that I really liked, and then it came together just like that. Then I mean, it took me maybe 3 or 4 hours from start to finish, and I got it, you know, pretty much done, and I sent it to them the next day, and thumbs up. So I just finished mixing that, and actually I got it for the first time. I decided for this one because I wanted to test out getting my tracks professionally mixed, because I've always made my own mix downs, but for this one, and you know, I've heard good things about this guy who's a friend of a friend who's mixed various people's records, which I've heard in the club, and they sound really good. So I got him to mix this, and it's sounding really nice. So,
who is he?
He's his name is Bram, and he makes music as Quince. Been on Delsin Records and various other places.
Is he here?
No, he's from Holland. Yeah.
Can we hear some of the track?
You can.
Okay.
so I started this track off. It came together with this pad on the Nord. Which, basically I just put a bunch of effects on and put some nice delay and reverb on it, and an auto pan. And with that, I was just kind of playing that with the vocal in the background, and just seeing how they were working together. And then other things just started coming together. So I added in the bass line, which was very simple. It's just a couple of notes from the Moog. I put a little side chain with the kick, just to get them sitting right. And I just started building up everything else from there. The drums. I threw in the Lounge Lizard Rhodes emulation, playing kind of similar chords to actually what's playing on the Nord. And then I sketched out a basic arrangement of the track. So usually what I do normally when I'm making a track, I actually record it from the session view. So I build up all the elements in the session view. I just keep everything just looping, just listening to everything, taking things in and out. With this one, it was a little bit different. Something that I very rarely do, but I actually started the arrangement in the arrangement view instead. So I just copied all the components into the arrangement view. I dragged them all out, and then I started adjusting the starts and the ends as the track was playing to see where it's best for everything to come in. I think it was because I was working with the vocals and I wanted to place the vocals very specifically in certain parts. So I just started, basically just arranging everything here on the arrangement view. So there's also, it's got a break in the middle where I changed up the music just a very small bit, just a variation on what it was. So here's the breakdown.
He walked out in the sun. He only just discovered the sun on the last day. And on the last day, when all his work was done, he only just discovered the sun on the last day. And on the last day, he walked out in the sun. He only just discovered the sun on the last day.
Moving track.
Thank you.